Trump is not entitled to a second presidential term. And I say this as someone who voted for him in 2020 because I definitely didn't want to see Biden become president. Just wanted to put that out there to show that I'm not a Democrat and much less a progressive, let alone a woke leftist. But I'm also not a Republican and much less a religious right-winger, though I can be just as conservative as I can be liberal. And this is what I find a bit scary about the hyper-polarization going on in our country right now. Not only that people can't see that there's a time and place to be liberal and conservative, but that so many people are blinded by their hatred of the other side and a desire to prove their loyalty to their own. Particularly people who claim to care about freedom and individuality. How can those same people not see the danger Donald Trump posed to our democracy by wanting to overturn the 2020 election results on January 6th? It's scary that there are still such die-hard Trump loyalists that see no wrong in Trump, especially regarding his anticipated arrest in New York City because District Attorney Alvin Bragg wants to prosecute Trump over the hush money payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels, which Trump claims he did so to protect his family's feelings. Of course, the most logical reason Trump did it was because he didn't want voters to find out he was cheating on his third wife, particularly the evangelical voter bloc that he knew he could win over by promising them to do something about abortion rights and Roe versus Wade, which he actually delivered on his promise. Unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, but I can see why some people hail him as a hero. Enough so to have some wonder if Trump's trials and tribulations are harder than Jesus Christ's. This is what I find so absolutely troubling. The blind allegiance so many people have for Trump to the point that they equate him to Jesus. This is how tyrannies happen. Trump has proven that if given the chance, he would become a dictator. He's openly talked about overturning the Constitution because he believes, without solid evidence, that the election was stolen from him. Granted, the election coverage by the majority of legacy media outlets throughout 2020 was nakedly biased against Trump. They barely made a big deal when Joe Biden literally said if Black Americans didn't vote for him, they weren't Black. Had Trump said that, he would have been impeached overnight. And I also find that blind allegiance and denial, not to mention collective cowardice, by Democrats and people on the left to be just as troubling. The fact that race hustlers like Black Lives Matter could shame half the nation into letting them take over in different ways, like the hundreds of riots throughout 2020 that claimed the lives of dozens of people, and now pushing a city like San Francisco into paying millions of dollars to Black Americans nowadays when San Francisco never participated in slavery since California was hardly a southern state. That problem is clearly on the left as well. Is it really that difficult for so many people to see through these extremes of the left and the right? Or are there really just that many bad faith actors among our society? That's something that census.gov won't cover, and I'm not sure even Rasmussen could accurately poll for that, despite finding out that close to 40% of Black Americans think it's not okay to be white. At the same time, I shouldn't be surprised that these levels of irrational hostility, division, and desire for retribution over the past would surface the way they do. After all, we're ultimately animals, and more specifically, we're biological organisms that need to survive by eating other forms of life and taking up a certain amount of territory on the planet. It's not for nothing why things can get so tribal. And even among the tribes, it can get so territorial that sibling rivalry is more common than not. And I'm hardly shocked anymore when I hear about parents turning on their own children over politics that could be easily solved by putting things into perspective. At least some conservative commentators have been talking about the utter pettiness of Trump resorting to schoolyard taunts regarding Ron DeSantis for taking advantage of his right to run for president in 2024. Not to mention the amount of people Donald Trump turned on, such as conservative commentators like Candace Owens, who helped back Trump for his first term just as much as Trump claims he helped back DeSantis for becoming Florida's governor. All because of the unquestioning loyalty Trump expects from everyone. A loyalty that doesn't allow you to ever criticize him, to ever call him on his almost childlike approach to politics and dealing with other human beings that he has no right to lord over like a dictator. But of course he feels that way because enough people have given him reason to. I've even seen it among people I know. Cubans that fled the tyranny of Castro's communist regime and his insufferable cult of personality. And these same people almost worship at the altar of Trump, much like they criticized their own relatives back in Cuba for being so submissive when it came to Castro. Human psychology is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. The same thing Churchill supposedly said about the Soviet Union in October 1939 after the signing of the Nazi-Soviet Pact and the beginning of World War II, back when Germany and Russia were under two of history's most murderous tyrants, Hitler and Stalin. Two men that, as far as the laws of physics are concerned, could have been easily overpowered by the millions of people who lost their lives to the mass hysteria these men caused. I don't want to conclude that Trump is literally Hitler, but Trump is eerily similar to this communist and fascist asshole, Fidel Castro. And Castro learned from Hitler. His book, History Will Absolve Me, is all too similar to Hitler's Mein Kampf. Even how they both represented themselves in court for their trying to overturn their nation's government, such as Hitler with the beer hall pushed in 1923, which he only served 8 months of a 5-year prison term, and Fidel Castro for his attack against the Moncada barracks exactly 30 years later in 1953, which he only served 2 years of a 15-year prison term. Whether Trump should be arrested in New York City for the Stormy Daniels hush money payments is debatable. But I'm surprised Trump is not already in prison for the January 6th attack on our nation's capital, just like Hitler and Castro were for their attacks on their own government. Only all three of these unconscionably selfish, power-hungry psychopaths should have never been allowed anywhere near power again. Which is why it's not for nothing that Trump is almost welcoming the idea of being arrested, handcuffed, and even frog-marched before the cameras. Aside from his pathological obsession with celebrity and attention, he somehow knows that could very well get him his second term that he's clearly not entitled to. I just fear that if he does, the United States will unfortunately live up to another ominous warning that people get the government they deserve, and all because of one man's ego that has yet to be popped like a balloon of his own hot air. If I got anything wrong in this video, please let me know in the comments below. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for upcoming videos, and check out the links below for my original art and merchandise, and thanks for watching.